My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 25 is out, and with this new episode comes the somewhat peaceful yet ominous ending of this season. This episode covers the events of 5 chapters from the My Hero manga, following the events of chapters 240, 246, 256, 257, and 258. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 25, titled The High Deep Blue Sky. And as usual, don't forget to Detroit smash that like button and slide into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. This episode picks up exactly where the last episode left off, with Shigaraki and Ridestro after having their city-destroying pissing match officially announcing the formation of the Paranormal Liberation Front. We now see that amongst the crowd of Liberation Army soldiers watching Shigaraki's inauguration as the organization's Grand Commander is none other than Hawks. It's revealed through a flashback that Hawks managed to convince Dabi to let him in on their organization's ongoings by bringing him the deceased body of Best Jeanist, who you might have remembered is reportedly missing according to the local media. Hawks, in seeing firsthand just how powerful the League has become and in seeing the uber powerful backers Shigaraki now has, realizes that he needs to work fast in order to take this new organization down. Following this, the story then cuts over to Shigaraki in some sort of medical facility with Dr. Ujiko, who is preparing to fulfill his promise to the new King of Villainy in giving him great power. As Ujiko is setting everything up, he asks Tomura, now that his quirk has fully awakened and is near unstoppable on its own, why exactly does he want more power? To which Shigi replies that he will use any form of power he can get his hands on to make sure he can turn the society All Might has created to dust. In hearing this, Ujiko laughs about how similar Tomura is to his adoptive papa, All For One. Ujiko then goes on to explain that he was the person who came up with the quirk singularity theory, that eventually quirks would become too powerful for their users to wield. And he says that All For One was the only person who took his theory seriously and supported it. And this is why he is so loyal to the symbol of fear. After dropping this exposition, Ujiko then explains that it will take 4 straight months of pain and suffering for the great power to transfer into Tomura. However, once Shigaraki receives this power, Ujiko claims that he will even be able to do the one thing All For One couldn't: obtain One For All. And with this little cliffhanger, the story cuts back to present day My Hero, which, in case you were wondering, is right after Todoroki, Bakugo, and Midoriya finished up their work studies with Endeavor. The story zooms right into UA High School, where Class 1A are all showing off the new abilities and techniques each of them learned in their hero work studies, which, to be honest, would have been a great place to start off the next season, considering they always like to open the season with a refresher on Class 1A's abilities. But you get what you get. During this showcase, we see that Midoriya now has pretty good control over Black Whip, with him being able to grab, pull, and tie together multiple robots simultaneously while in midair, and there's a cute little moment here where Ochako and Deku fist bump because they're both proud of their improvements. Actually, there's also a cute little moment in this episode between Mina and Kirishima too, where Mina explains that she got her idea for her new Acid Man technique by watching Kirishima use his unbreakable form. Man, all this episode needed was a Jiro and Kaminari or Momo moment, and you could have called this episode the Harbor episode, because it's full of nothing but ships. But anyway, after this showcase is done, Bakugo and Midoriya head to the break room with All Might, so they can be filled in on everything All Might has learned about the past One For All users. However, just before this scene takes place, we do get to see a small interaction between Present Mike and Aizawa, where they both discuss their suspicions about what the Hero Safety Commission is up to getting all of their students to take part in hero work studies, and they both talk about what they will do when they find a person responsible for the creation of Nomus. Although, before they can get into the real graphic details, Tamaki and Mirio show up and ask Aizawa if he can help them out with Eri, as her horn seems to have grown and she seems really uncomfortable. But following this, we get back to Midoriya, All Might, and Bakugo in the break room, where All Might hands the boys a notebook with all of the details he could find on One For All's previous users. All Might explains that due to the hecticness and craziness of their time period, he couldn't find any information at all on the second and third user. However, he did find a lot of information on all of the others. While looking through the notes, Bakugo points out that none of the previous users really have extraordinary quirks, and that they all seem to be pretty basic, to which All Might explains that the reason for this is because none of the previous users were really chosen. It turns out that All For One has been hunting One For All ever since he discovered its existence, and as a result, he hunted down anyone who possessed it. This led to all of the users being forced to face off against the old King of Villainy, unsurprisingly being mortally wounded in the conflict and being forced to pass on the quirk to someone they trusted nearby. This, as Bakugo points out, is why all of the previous users died young. After this oddly dark and off-putting revelation, Bakugo, in typical Bakugo fashion, gets impatient and demands to know which quirk Midoriya will focus on learning next, to which All Might responds, Float, the quirk that belonged to All Might's mentor, Nana Shimura. In hearing this, Bakugo laughs and begins to aggressively gloat how he has already perfected floating with his explosions, so he plans on surpassing Midoriya and everything else while the young hero tries to learn how to float. And with this, we get the now typical and always lovable back and forth between Deku and Kacchan exclaiming that they're going to surpass one another. And then the story cuts over to the UA dorms, where everyone in Class 1A is sitting around having a big meal together and just talking about average school stuff. They talk about their upcoming final exams, how soon they will all be second years, and how Midoriya is too stuck in his own head to pass the Ponzu to Tokoyami. Birdboy just wants his sauce, Midoriya. Give him the damn sauce! While the kids are all eating inside, Aizawa meets up with All Might outside. Here, Aizawa tells All Might that Tsukuichi has postponed his meeting with Stain for the time being, and All Might accepts this, but he begins to question his purpose at UA, claiming that he feels like he can't do enough for his students. But Aizawa, being the best dad that he is, explains that All Might just being alive and being here is inspiration for the kids in its own right. And as soon as Aizawa says this, All Might thinks about Sir Night-Eye on his deathbed, and he begins to get emotional, and he thanks Dadzawa for his kind words. And with this, we then technically get the final season of this scene, in which we see that Hawks is still trying to find out what exactly Oboro meant when he said hospital, followed by Dr. Ojiko walking through Jakku Hospital and talking with a nurse who asks him if his research is going well. We then see Hawks walk into a room with all of the League members as he waves at Twice and thinks to himself how all he can do now is wait and gather information until the heroes are ready and X-Day arrives. And with this, the credits roll. But there is an after credits scene where we see all of Class 1A getting called to go on the exact same mission from each of their work studies. And episode 25 and season 5 officially ends with all of 1A and a bunch of other heroes standing on a cliffside looking down on a city as Midoriya's inner monologue proclaims that the heroes fight against the Paranormal Liberation Front and the war that will forever shake hero society is about to begin. Overall, this was a decent episode. As for big finales go, there wasn't anything spectacular and there was no real earth-shattering revelation. However, it did leave us with just enough info and mystery to keep us curious and excited for what's going to happen next. It also, funnily enough, contained a nice full circle moment. This season started with Midoriya's dream of the previous One For All users and ended with him not only showing some mastery over one of their quirks, but getting as much detail as possible on each of the users. As a standalone episode, not much really happened, but there were some nice character moments throughout and there was some great foreshadowing. I will say, in terms of My Hero season finales, this was probably the worst one in my opinion, but to be honest, not by that much. Like, I genuinely enjoyed the episode and I'm sure when I rewatch this season, I will see it in a better light. It was kind of strange having another 1A showcase at the very end of this season, knowing full well they're going to start next season with another one like they always do. However, other than this, there's not really much to say about this episode. I don't want to go into too many details about season 5 because I'm currently working on a video about the season as a whole. But let me know what you thought of this episode. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.